Hello and welcome to Toby's Blogs 50th anniversary special on the Doctors of the William Hartnell era.
That's correct. Now we're going to move on to
part
season
2 of
That's
the video.
right.
So you go and watch part 1 before you watch this one, and we'll start with part 2, season 2 of William Hartnell's era.
So we move on to Planet of the Giants, which is a bit different to a number of stories we've seen already in this season. Planet of Giants, the idea that the occupants of the TARDIS have become miniaturized as the doors have come open when they shouldn't have done. I think I found the story a bit boring when I first saw it, but I think there are certain aspects of the story that work very well. I think the set designs were pretty good. Certainly giving Barbara this sort of DN6 poison, that made interest into the story. But the thing with Pharaoh and the murder, I suppose that was the main plot line really. To me, I just didn't enjoy it. No. I just found, it might as well have been Midsummer Murders, it wasn't really Doctor Who to me.
The stuff to do with the Doctor and the miniaturisations and them trying to get round this huge world, that was good. But the other story about them being murdered,
they were very dull characters.
Yeah, so it wasn't really
I don't think they were very well portrayed as well by the actors, which was a shame, because I think that story could have worked very well. I suppose highlight of that one was probably that phone call they made, and they're trying to scream through. But anyway, and obviously the giant insects. Yeah, that was quite interesting. But yeah, Planet of Giants, watchable maybe, but I probably wouldn't recommend it.
Story of the season, because there's so many.
Possibly, if you're getting the DVD, or if you've got it already, the 4-part realisation might be more interesting. Definitely, because they had to cut a lot out of it, I think. Right, next up we have a classic.
The
Dalek
really good story.
Invasion of Earth, which, well, I mean, words cannot...
well, it's just a fantastic story.
Yeah.
Just the whole concept of the Daleks invading London.
I mean, Anne Davis in the story is Jenny. Then you had Tyler as played by Bernard Kay, one of his first appearances in Doctor Who, and the guy who played Dortmund was his name. Really, really good, and the Daleks were just ruthless.
And the iconic image of the Dalek coming out of the water.
That's right, yes. And everyone's still wondering, if the special effects guys watching this video, how did that Dalek get out of the water? Please tell us, because we just want to know. Maybe it's on the DVD and we just haven't found it. It could be an Easter egg on there or something. But, oh yes, the Dalek's brilliant. Their spaceship, everything about them. And I love the way the Doctor solved that puzzle bit when he was locked up in the spaceship with the refraction of light. Some, elements of science in there, because it was very educational at the beginning, Doctor Who. The Daleks, just, they look very good in the story. I like the character of David. I think it was a good exit for Susan, because she was growing up and she wanted, to be independent from the Doctor. Very sad ending to the story, of course, seeing her leave. But full of action, full of excitement, and it kind of almost reminds you of the war. The way everyone sort of camped in a place and listening to the radio. So certainly some elements of that. But brilliant story, highly recommended. One of the high points of this season.
Yeah, one of the best of the season, yeah.
And then we move on to a story that, again, I think is an extremely good story, The Rescue, which introduces Maureen O'Brien as Vicky.
He's Vicky, yeah.
And Coquillian, brilliantly played by... well, I can't remember his name, but anyway, he was also Bennett, wasn't he, in the story? But obviously there was a lot of mystery in this story, and it was nice to see the development of Vicky's character, plus obviously the view of an outsider, because Barbara kills this creature outside, and she's terrified of it. It looks hideous, and it's like, just because you see a spider on the wall, should we kill it? And it kind of brought home, that, well, actually this thing was Vicky's friend. That she shot.
One of my favourite scenes in the Rescue is when the Doctor and Ian are going across that ledge, and then all these spikes are coming out, and all the creatures come like,
and also
for a meal.
At one point, when Coquillian pushes Barbara off the thing, I think she's dead. I'm thinking, what the hell's happened? She has gone down that cliff or something, But a lovely story, and the ending perhaps was a bit weird. I mean, those were the people from the spaceship that originally landed there. What were they doing all that time down there? So that was a bit odd, but Very, very good story again.
Yeah.
And we go on to another story, which again was very good.
Yes.
The Romans. And a lot of historical research done on this one, but a lot of comedy injected into it, and I think it worked. I mean, William Hartnell's doctor being falsely identified as Maximus Battalion, or Batulian, although they seem to pronounce it God knows how many different ways in the story. And of course, the wonderful Emperor Nero, played wonderfully by the actor who was in the story, and the Lady Poppaea. Oh my goodness, she was just like a vicious bitch. She just wanted to kill Barbara's character, didn't she?
Kill her.
Yes. And then when she gets so angry and her temper just chucks a glass of wine or something, or all sorts of things on the floor from the family sort of poison her, I suppose, for put it that way. But everything in it: mystery, intrigue, conspiracy, humour, and even William Hartnell, you know, doing his fight with that sort of the man with no tongue. That was just brilliant. Played by I can't remember his name now. I'm terrible about remembering names. But Barry Jackson. That's Barry Jackson.
The Barbara and Ian storyline.
Oh yes, the separations. That was very, very good.
Separate.
And at the end. And my favourite scene, I think, is when they're sort of lying down and, Ian says to her, there was some leftover duck or something like that in the fridge. Do you think you can get it? Of course, she doesn't think at first. There's nothing in the fridge. There's no fridge. So brilliant stuff, that, and very enjoyable, and certainly a very good season 2. Certainly turning out to be a good season. Yeah. We move on to a story which perhaps is a bit long. The Web Planet, difficulty in realising with the budget, I think, more than anything else. I thought it was very interesting, the Animus, mysterious character. We don't really find out much about
I like the Animus.
The Animus. But, we had the Zarbies bumping into cameras. We had cockroaches that were pretty poor, and the Menoptera, who were, I suppose they did well for the time, but when you look at it now, it sort of almost looks like a stage play, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, but it's good. It is good for the time. Yeah. The Zarbi maybe not so good.
There is a good plot line there, but again, I think it just drags on too long for some people, and it wouldn't be the story that I would pick off my shelf every week. I would pick up the Romans, but I probably wouldn't pick up the Web Planet.
I am the Animus, obey me or
but,
die.
I think what's his name's in this story? Martin Jarvis plays one of the Menoptera. It's his first role. The Menoptera massing on the creator of needles.
Well, there's other ones. The Optera.
Oh my God! Don't. And if you come from above, you will die. There must have been real athletes or something, or gymnasts.
Around, and she's digging into the side, and then all this acid comes out. She just shoves her head in it,
and she goes, "Ah!" It was just like,
and then goes, "What's happening to her? She's dying."
Every creature is fine, but the Optera, well, it might have been the Opera.
She must fill the hole,
to be honest.
Or we die.
Yes, they weren't very good, but all the other creatures, were very good, and I did like the end. I love the way the Zarbi, their heads were in the water. Licking the water at the end. And they're like little pets. That was quite nice, yeah. So a few good elements, but overall I think was a bit disappointing and a bit long. Then we have the Crusade. Obviously only half this story exists. Episodes 1 and 3. Very good acting in this story. Obviously prior to 1999 we only had the Lion episode. Sorry, not the Lion, the episode 3. We didn't have the Lion episode, that was the newly found episode. But Julian Glover plays a fantastic Richard, and Jean Marsh was brilliant as Princess Joanna. I love the way, I think it's not William Depreo, it's Earl of Lancaster or something. Earl of Leicester, that's it. He was very devious, he got the Doctor in trouble. Over some giving plans away of what the king wanted to do, the Joanna marriage with Saladin, I think it was, Saffadin, one of those. But I think a very good classic story. Good sets again, great acting. It's some very scary things. It's like the house that Barbara goes to with that girl and that man. It was just so sad. It's just burn the house down, they're just utterly ruthless. And my favourite episode ending, definitely one of my favourites. The only pleasure left for you is death, and death is very far away. And you see poor Barbara's face. It's like, will she ever get out of this place? She's very desperate to. But a good story, one of the classics, definitely. Written by John Lucarotti. Then we move on to maybe one of the disappointments, the Space Museum. Looked very cheap, poor hairstyles. Very good first episode, no doubt about that, but the Morocs, must have been the Morons, I think was really bad, very dull characters. The Governor Lobos, I think, was probably the best of them, without doubt. But and there were some few good ideas in there about freezing the Doctor and
the whole time element. They see themselves, what will happen to them, they're trying to avoid it.
That was pretty terrifying, that first episode. Yes, but apart from that, you know, pretty much
I quite like
forgettable
Vicky
story.
helping the Resistance. That's why I like that. I was at a story. I like it because Vicky is helping the Resistance, who develops her character a bit more in that. And then she tries to rally all these children to fight back, and you get the revolution, which I kind of like in that story. That's
right. So I think towards the end of the story, we get quite a bit of the action and interest, as well as the first episode. So which is good. Then
Move on
Chase.
to an absolute fantastic story.
Well, I'm going to disagree with my friend here, because I think The Chase, although it has wonderful elements of jumping from place to place, I think there are certain aspects of this story which are pretty flawed and disappointing. I know Peter Purvis originally plays Morton Dill and then plays Stephen Taylor. I don't know, for me, it just seemed a bit coincidental to have the same actor, you know, playing both. I probably would have preferred not to. But I mean, the Dracula thing being in the you know, someone's, was it a dream or was it a fair? I'm not sure.
It was a fair.
It was a fair, wasn't it? It was a bit,
and they're all robots.
Weird. The Iridians were just so disappointing. You know, it's like, oh yes, the Daleks will do this. It's like brainless aliens who just don't seem to know anything. Surely they would have had some sort of brain, you know, to know that the Daleks were going to, you know, harm them no matter what. But then I suppose there are other aliens. But they were just very poorly designed, sort of flapping around all over the place. And the Maya beasts, oh, you know, it's almost like a fat version of Slimer.
As I say, in its defence, I think it was a good story, jumping from place to place. Very good Dalek story. You get to see a lot more of the Daleks.
There's a bit of comedy injected in there as well.
Beast, very funny, the way it gobbles
the last part, I think, was very good. The Mechanoids and the Dalek fight,
really
that
good.
was very enjoyable. I think at the end, when you heard the music towards the end, the sort of the climax, it was getting interesting in Stephen Taylor's character. But prior to that, I thought it was a bit slow going. Things were poorly realised. And the Mary Celeste, I suppose, it was an interesting aspect
I think it's a very exciting, enjoyable episode. Apart from the flaws that you said,
to me, I think it's distinctly average. I think there's better Dalek stories out there and better ones to come. And then the last story of this season is the Time Meddler, which I think is a wonderful story, having Peter Butterworth as the meddling monk. You know, finally meeting one of the Doctor's people, and the aspect of the Vikings in this story. So it's sort of got some historical elements. Obviously, seeing another TARDIS, the cheekiness of the Time Meddler. William Hartnell, I think, excels in this story. I think he loves pitting his wits against somebody else, and the monk was the perfect person to be fighting over. The only thing with this story, I think, is the fact the Viking battle isn't particularly well realised. You know, I mean, we should be seeing thousands of people, you know, but I know it's the 60s. Doctor Who's budget isn't very big, but it could have been more grand scale, because you expect a battle to be, rather than a handful of men overtaking the people there and raping a woman. But very, very good story otherwise. I think the Time Meddler is certainly much more watchable than some of the other stories like Planet of Giants in this season. But in review, I think the best story of this season probably would have to be between The Crusade, The Dalek Invasion of Earth, Rescuing the Romans. So actually there's 4 there. It's very hard to pick between those 4.
My top favourites of this season is The Chase and The Dalek Invasion of Earth.
Maybe, I think, if we say The Dalek Invasion of Earth for this one, I think.
Okay, so coming next is Season 3 of William Hartnell's Era. Thank you and goodbye.